The New Right Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the second episode of the New Right Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Casey.
And I'm David.
And we are launching into this episode after I had the perfect introduction, and David had to go and fuck it up.
Hey, he's got the thing on mute. I had no idea the jingle plays without us knowing about it.
Yeah, I hope you guys like that jingle because I wrote it myself, and I'm very proud. Well, I didn't write the song, obviously.
No, but you played it on guitar.
I played it myself. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so today on the podcast, we have a few different things we're going to discuss in current events, but it's kind of a slow news week, at least slow as far as we are concerned. So we are going to take a little bit of time in this podcast to hash out the ideas of communism and socialism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's good to do this right off the bat. You know, one of the first episodes to talk about the New Right is fundamentally opposed to socialism, and it's a good idea for our listeners to understand what socialism even is.
Yeah, so read a book, you damn commies.
Yeah.
Is that where we should start?
I mean, everybody should read a book. You shouldn't necessarily just imbibe all the things that we have to say, uncritically. You should also read books.
Oh, I meant the Facebook ad.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Read a book, you damn commies, that got banned.
Yeah.
So we are going to discuss the controversial Facebook ads and YouTube ads that Google and Facebook did not want you to see.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. So, first and foremost, really quick to remind you, we are now on iTunes and Google Play Music. I'm still waiting to hear back from Spotify. Mm-hmm. But you can now subscribe and listen to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play Music, which are two of the bigger ones. So I would imagine you can still listen on Buzzsprout if you want. You can still download the episodes. That's fine too. Also, go ahead and follow us at New Right Pod, the New Right Pod.
Yeah, New Right Pod on Twitter. New Right Podcast on Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel as well, the New Right Podcast.
We also have a Minds account. Mm-hmm. MINDS.
Yeah, we formed that immediately after getting all the ads banned, and we're just looking for a bastion of free speech, and that's how they bill themselves. So
is it DS or DZ?
DS.
Minds. It is DS. Okay.
MINDS.com.
I didn't know if they were trying to be edgy, especially how every app for a while just didn't have vowels, so it would be like MNDS or something.
Yeah, vowels are for old people.
Vowels are for old. Everything's lowercase except for like random things are uppercase. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, damn fogies.
Yeah, I mean Facebook's, I guess, right in that camp with the lowercase at least.
Talk about that for a second. We got an ad pulled for having too many capital letters.
Yeah, that was a thing too. Well, that's kind of par for the course ish. I think it was a little bit nitpicky on their part, but yeah. So the first ad, we decided to start the Facebook page, which some of you, ladies and gentlemen, have liked us on. And the first ad I ran for anyone who's been on the Facebook page is the banner says "Knowledge is power. Read a book, you damn commie. The New Right." So the initial ad I ran was not Iraq. I ran, but was just, it wasn't even the banner. I just ran an ad campaign to build new likes. So if you've ever been on Facebook and you've gotten an ad that is literally just like a page with some text and a like button, that's the ad I ran. Then the default for those usually is the banner for your page. Mm-hmm. So the banner for our page is the "Read You Book, You Damn Commie," which we got a message from Facebook saying that it was derogatory language, foul language, blah, 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 hate speechy type stuff. Mm-hmm. So the first ad I tried to run got banned. And no surprise, I guess. But
no.
I mean, at the same time, a little surprise. It is a brand new podcast and a new Facebook page. So I got mixed feelings. So first, I know that working with in the field of social media marketing, which I do to an extent, I know that when you first start a page on Facebook keeps an eye on your page, especially when you start running ads, because they don't want you to be spamming people.
Yeah.
So what generally happens is if you start a Facebook page, you don't have a lot of followers yet, and you start running ads, then what they're going to do is they're going to have someone manually review your ads, which means some dude in India, yes, in India, I'm not being racist, it's in India most of the time. Some dude in India is going to be looking over your ads. They have a checklist of things that are right and wrong depending on the policies, which do actually change here and there.
Quite frequently.
Yeah, quite frequently. And eventually, once Facebook grows to trust you, they start letting their algorithm take care of it again. Well, apparently, somebody saw either the word damn or commies, and I'm thinking it's commies,
Yeah.
and decided to ban the ad.
Yeah, the FCC allows the word damn, so I can't imagine. But,
Facebook,
but I think anything really on social media at all with the word right or conservative or anything that isn't part of this, cultural Marxist cult that we've got going on over in Silicon Valley is going to be met with some form of resistance. That's just the way it goes. If you're not posting cat videos, they don't like you stirring the pot.
which was the second ad.
Yeah, so decided to go ahead and run a nothing to see here. Zuckerberg just posting cats.
With cats.
With cats.
With antlers.
Yeah, well, they were cute cats.
Not quite seasonal, but it'll work. So then we moved on to the YouTube page. So we decided to try to get our stuff going on YouTube, and that's where the fun really started. I was trying to run just a basic YouTube video ad, which is like a 30-second ad spot that you can choose to skip or not or whatever. So we get a response from YouTube saying it was banned due to shocking content and dangerous or derogatory content. Mm-hmm. Which, essentially, dangerous content. So essentially hate speech. And if we kept running ads like that, our YouTube account would be banned. Mm-hmm. It's a brand new YouTube account. If you want to, you can check out the first episode of the podcast, which we highly suggest. Mm-hmm. But you'll see when you listen to it, it's not like an alt-right yelling at the microphone about the Jews and stuff.
No. But, I mean, you saw Sargon of Akkad got trampled by Antifa over in England when he was trying, and he's not alt-right. They don't care. Anybody to the right of Mao is to be shut down. Yeah.
So that was the original ad I ran, and I was like, okay, well, it was an audio video ad, so maybe I can just run a strictly display ad. So if you've ever been on YouTube and you see like a suggested video on the side of your screen, that's usually an ad. Sometimes I think it's even labeled an ad, but whatever. So I tried to make it as humdrum as possible. It just said like libertarian conservative podcast, listen for free, yada yada, nothing crazy. Well, the first message I get back is too many uppercase letters. So I was like, okay, there was a couple of the words I capitalized, so maybe that was it. So I just decided to make everything lowercase, and I was like, you know what, this is fine. We can deal with this. And then I even noticed that the name of the YouTube version of the video might have gotten it flagged, so I changed it to like Naughty Pug UK Conviction, I think, instead of Nazi Pug. So if you go on the YouTube and you see that, that's why it says Naughty Pug instead of Nazi Pug. Anyway, so
like we don't have to clarify that the pug's not actually a Nazi, right? That's
you would think.
You would think. So I get another message about my display message saying shocking content. And again, I'm like, all right, well, this time it literally says nothing shocking.
So I'm the guy that calls people and speaks to customer service. So I am that asshole. Like, people know that about me, that I get a lot of shit from a friend of mine for like writing to Uber when they like drive by me, or like calling Grubhub and sitting on the phone for like 20 minutes because they like fucked up my burger or forgot my milkshake.
I mean, that might be a little extreme, but in
I'm that
general,
guy.
you should call people or companies when you don't get the service that you were promised.
Hey, I usually get a refund. Sometimes I get a lot of free shit. So hey, I'll be a pain in the ass. I can be petty. So I call them. They actually picked up pretty quickly for their AdWords department. We get this woman in India. Yes, India. And I spoke to her about the issue, and I mentioned just some of the basic content that we spoke about. And she was like, well, maybe it's because it has gun in the title. And I said, well, that says gun control. We're having a gun control debate here in the United States. That's relevant. And she's like, well, blah, blah, blah. It might be hate speech. It might be swearing. It might be cursing. I'm like, wait, swearing? Like, are you saying that I can't run ads for videos that have swear words? And she's like, well, we're, the policy. I'm like, seriously? Because there's a lot of videos that I've watched that have swear words that ads will run for them. And I'm like, so where in this ad is there actually an issue? And she's like, well, it's not just the ad. It's your entire video. So if there's anything, even in a display ad, if there's anything in the video that they deem offensive, the entire ads campaign can be shut down. So I asked for what solutions there could be, and they said that they could manually review it. So I had them manually review the entire episode. So some dude in India had to listen to an hour-plus episode about conservative politics, which I found was funny. And they eventually got back to me with a message saying, all clear. So I guess nothing was so shocking and all that stuff that they were literally going to ban our YouTube account. So if I wouldn't have called them and I tried to run an ad, they might have banned my account.
But I mean, this is the scope of the censorship that anybody on the right is experiencing right now. Again, nobody even reviews it. It's got the wrong tags, or it's the bots that go through and scour the internet for CrimethInc.
Yeah, I don't think gun or Nazi were the words. I think conservative and libertarian were the words that got us bagged. And we're a brand new show. I can't even imagine the shit that, because you always hear about the shit that content producers on the right have to go through.
Yeah.
And I figured, being a tiny little mini brand new show podcast with almost no funding, even though we got accused of having billionaire funders on Facebook.
Vladimir Putin is bankrolling this whole podcast, if you weren't aware.
Yeah, I didn't know if he was saying left or right. Like, I didn't know if he was accusing me of taking money from the Koch brothers or George Soros. And I want to make the record clear that we're taking money from both.
Yes.
So,
if you have money to offer us, we will accept it. We're whores.
Throw it at us. We'll say whatever you want. We'll say that Barney killed JFK. Like Barney the dinosaur.
Yeah, well, you didn't? I thought he did.
Yeah. I love you, except for you, JFK.
I mean, he did go to jail for what is it, pederasty or whatever? The actual guy who played the Barney costume on the TV show?
He did what?
Yeah, he touched a kid or something.
No, he didn't.
I feel like I remember this story. This was back in the early 2000s, but...
This seems like one of those things that you shouldn't say unless you have proof. Anyway, JFK jokes aside, it's interesting to find that even the smaller people are getting kind of pushed around over the conservative label. And we've been getting a lot of responses in general, which is good and bad. We're getting a lot of likes on the Facebook, which I really enjoy. We're getting some comments. We've actually had a couple decent discussions on there and a little bit of hate, but you're going to get what you're going to get.
Yeah, everybody's welcome. I mean, for the larger versus smaller content producer thing, I think it's important for the social media companies to try to nip these in the bud, right? The first ones, the smaller the channel is, the easier it is to shut down. The less support it has, the less backing it has, the less, angry emails they're going to receive when they terminate an account. Like, if they were to terminate Alex Jones's YouTube channel, they'd never hear the end of it.
Hey, they pulled Tommy Robinson off Twitter.
Yeah. And that got a significant backlash. But if they were to pull us off of the airwaves, so to speak, or the interwebs, there would be no backlash.
I don't know.
We're tiny.
There would be me calling them and repeatedly abusing their
for
customer
hours
service
at a time.
representatives. That and just doing what Social Justice Warriors, the Facebook page does, just constantly restart new accounts. That's what I would probably end up doing. But that's the thing is that, yeah, they can bully most smaller like content providers, but I'm at least savvy enough. I have another podcast, The Gory Details Horror Show, by the way, if you wanted to listen to it, The Gory Details Horror Show. I've been running that podcast since like 2014. So I'm pretty savvy to the whole ad running a Facebook page, all that jazz. So anyway, we got censored. That's the long and short of it. And we spoke with YouTube. They lifted our ban. Oh, that's what I was going to say. But I've been trying to run that ad that initially got banned for like 4 or 5 days now, and they haven't run it. It's been enabled, but they haven't actually really run it. There's like 37 impressions with 0 clicks and $0 spent. So even though they've only... Usually they'll shotgun it out way farther, because I've run ads through them before. 37 is nothing. Like I mean, obviously with the giant audience they have, that's useless, and they know it's useless because they haven't even charged me a penny yet, because they essentially haven't run my ads. So I don't know if that's user error. I've run ads before and had success, but I've been trying to run this ad for 5 days or so now, even after it got approved, and I have like no reach so far.
Well,
and it's going to run out. It actually ran out, and then I had to extend the date for when the ad was going to end. So I'm going to try finicking around with it.
Yeah, don't worry. We get to do this all again this week.
Yeah.
For this particular broadcast.
Anyway, so subscribe on YouTube if you get a chance, just to stick it to the man.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that the man now is like private businesses?
No, the man is some, white guy with dreadlocks who wears jeans to work and Birkenstock sandals. Like, this is the man now.
Reminds me of a Smart Guy when the kid is like, the dad was bitching about the man. The kid was like, "Who is this man you're always talking about?" Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's
dive into some current events.
Yeah, there we go.
So, Sweden found a backbone this week. Which I think is
Oh
interesting.
yeah. Well, why don't you tell them about what was going on in the first place?
Oh, okay. So, this whole thing started or picked up the international news with a pamphlet going around about how to hide or how to deal with the police when they find out that you have a child bride in Sweden. Which understandably got a lot of negative backlash. Because the acid attacks, the grenade attacks, the living in no-go zones, all of that Sweden was perfectly capable of accepting for, the better part of half a decade now. But I'm glad they finally stood up for something.
Well, I mean, at first they released a pamphlet essentially outlining how these people can get extra welfare since their child bride isn't technically legally their bride.
Yeah.
They're not legally married in Sweden to their child brides, but they can still get welfare.
And they can still live together.
They can still live together. Remember back when people said that they would do something when they started coming after the kids? Well, now we have transitioning kids on hormones and child brides immigrating to Sweden. And I guess,
People are doing something.
Sorta.
I
mean, some of the parties. Other parties took umbrage with it.
Yeah, they took a vote. I think it was yesterday.
They had to vote for this.
Well, they had to
What does
vote to
that tell you?
actually enforce the ban on child marriage in these communities because they just weren't doing it before.
Why do you have to vote on whether or not you're going to crack down on a law that's already in place? That shouldn't be.
The more disturbing part is that it wasn't unanimous.
Yeah, that first of all, that's disturbing. Second of all, can you imagine like sitting around in Chicago and the legislators are like taking a vote for whether or not they should crack down on murder? It's like, people are killing each other, but it might be a waste of police resources.
Yeah. We have other things to do here.
Yeah, like fix the damn roads.
That's not what police do.
No, I'm talking about the city of Chicago and the gigantic potholes that eventually become holes. There in front of my house, there was a pothole that got bad enough that it literally became a hole in the ground. Mm-hmm. Like a hole as in you can look down and see through down underneath, like to the sewer system. Like a hole in the ground. And it was like a couple feet wide. And they eventually put like plywood on top of it.
Oh my God.
And then they finally barricaded it off, and then they finally fixed it, but it took like a couple months.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, we have just horrible government.
So you tell me the government is bloated and inefficient? That's going to be a running thing. Yeah, so anyway, the Swedish government took a vote, and
yeah, they're going to actually crack down on child marriages now. Not just they've always, for Swedish citizens, child marriage has always been banned, but if you came into the country already married to a child, they kind of turned a blind eye to that for, the past couple of years. Well, and they're not doing that anymore.
You were talking about how it was like a split decision.
Oh, yeah, I guess it was the Social Democrats or the far left party were the ones who thought it might be culturally insensitive or other such nonsense.
Yeah, they wanted to make certain exemptions. Mm-hmm. I don't know what those exemptions were. It didn't really say in the article.
Sure.
I know that they did. If you guys want to look it up, you can still find that pamphlet. It's in Swedish. Is that their language?
Yes, it's in Swedish.
It's in Swedish. So
you can find a translation.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm sure
I haven't found it. I don't know if I trust online translations. Anyway, so this is something that I don't know, not even 10 years ago would have been like jaw on the ground, shocking, like, mm-hmm. Oh my God, what is happening? Mm-hmm. And at this point, it just feels like it's par for the course.
I think I'm jaw on the ground shocked that Sweden finally stood up for its own values.
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
thought they
sad.
were just going to, go quietly into the night without fighting back ever.
Well, I guess they drew the line at children, but that doesn't mean that they're really fighting back.
No, they just drew a line in the sand.
Yeah, and it was kind of a squiggly line.
Yeah, it was a pretty
missing a couple spots.
It was pretty ineffectual too. I mean,
I don't know if they've banned immigration of people with child brides.
No,
they don't
have
split up the person and the bride, do they?
I believe that is going to be policy going forward. Yes,
it is.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that actually be enforced.
Yeah, we'll actually see if they enforce that.
So. God, that's fucking disturbing. God, once again, if I could jump in a time machine and if you could jump in a time machine and go to the 80s, people would be
they'd be
blown
horrified.
away. Once again, you go back and you're just like, okay, so Donald Trump, the guy who just built that steakhouse that went under.
Yeah, the guy
I don't know if it went under in the 80s, but
yeah, he was in Home Alone too.
Yeah, that guy's president. Oh, don't worry, we're not done. So, gay marriage is legal. Kids are now calling themselves one of 70 different genders.
Mm-hmm. And the state of New York is recognizing it.
With pronouns like zir and zer and other alien-sounding stuff. Also, otherkin, where people identify as raccoons.
Oh, yeah, and they have
wolves.
Yeah, they could be dragonkin with ethereal wings.
Nobody's ever like maggotkin.
No, of course not.
Or like mouse. Maybe mousekin. I don't know.
I haven't spent enough time on Tumblr.
Yeah, that's true. I guess there might be a rattlesnake kin or something. Probably not a possum kins going on.
I don't know. You could dig in the people's garbage and get caught in their traps.
Badgerkins?
I don't know.
I would imagine that there's some what is the honey badger?
Honey badger? Yeah.
I bet you there's some honey badger kin.
Somebody is inspired.
Someone's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm a Hodgie bitch king. Yeah. And then explain to them that children are transitioning to other sexes via hormone treatment at around 8 years old, 9 years old, and that Sweden and most of Europe has now been cucked out of existence. By the way, cucked is now a word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. By the way, cuckolding is now an actual fetish that people are trying to intellectualize. So that's the thing.
And say it'll help your marriage.
Yeah.
So now they're finally fighting against child brides in
hang
Sweden.
on. One more thing to tell people from the 80s. London now has a murder rate higher than New York City. That came out this week.
They would not believe that
No,
one.
they wouldn't.
I think out of all of this, that's probably the one that they're going to be like, you're full of shit.
Come on, have you been to New York City? It's a cesspool.
Have you been to New York?
Have you been to New York, man?
It was a fucking dead body in the street. Anyway.
But
yeah, terrorist attacks. Try to explain 9/11. Bunch of guys with like
box
cutters took over multiple planes, crashed them into buildings. Started a war with Iraq where we tried to find weapons that weren't there, which was actually like supposed to be a war for Afghanistan, in which took us decades to find the guy that.
Yeah, trillions of dollars literally just dumped into the desert, gone forever.
I don't. It's abysmal. That's it. I mean, it's not that the 80s were great. If there was any time period that I could live in, like any decade, the 80s would probably be one of the lower ones. At least in the 1900s.
I don't support playing this game in general. People are always like, I was born in the wrong decade or whatever. It's like, yeah, you don't know though.
I don't know. I kind of dig the 50s.
Yeah.
Not the racial segregation part, but I like the cars.
Yeah, the cars were cool.
The music and the dancing and the fashion and the values.
Yeah.
Except for the hating black people thing.
Yeah, but
which was more of a Democrat thing, by the way.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to like eventually go through like the history of the Democratic Party and like the racial relation history of the Democratic Party at some point.
For another podcast, Casey, for another podcast.
Yeah, no. So let's move on to the Caravan. Get it?
Yeah.
Move on to the Caravan.
Move on to the Caravan. Is that a song from the 80s? No,
because the Caravan
moves.
Oh,
okay.
Actually, there is a song called Caravan, which is a jazz standard that like Chet Akins and Les Paul and a bunch of other people of Joe Pass. They've all done different versions of it.
Cool.
So that is a real thing. So it is kind of a song, maybe not from the 80s. So tell us about this Caravan.
Well, the Mexican government has always been very strong on immigration, much stronger than the United States has ever been.
Let's be clear. Strong on people getting into Mexico, not leaving Mexico.
Yes. Well, no, they defend their borders, as any nation should do if they want to continue being a nation. And there's been a caravan of Central American. They call themselves refugees, but I mean they're just economic migrants. They don't like the countries that they were born in. Instead of trying to make those countries better by doing something, they're trying to run to a different country. They have been making their way up through Mexico unabated by the Mexican government for the past few days now. And just yesterday it came out that the Mexican government was going to actually try to shut this down. A huge outpouring of Trump's fan base, and Trump himself even tweeted on this, saying they will not be let into the United States if Mexico needs to do something about these illegal people. I mean, they're illegal in Mexico. They're also illegal in the United States. So the Mexican government has said that they're going to try to vet these people and send them back to the place that they're supposed to be. We will see if they actually do that.
So two things. First, I have the song Caravan stuck in my head now. So anyway, so that's stuck in my head. Second, so it's kind of funny how like left to their own devices, like the left and all of, I guess, the opponents of the right have a tendency to just prove the point that the right is trying to make. everyone was bitching about the idea of building a wall, and now there's like a mass immigration caravan that's trying to just walk into the country.
Yeah.
Which could have been way easier to stop if we would have built a wall.
The interesting thing about this isn't an organic caravan. This isn't just people deciding that their lives suck.
Was it George Soros?
It may have been. It's actually this guy named Alex Mensing who lives in Oakland, California. He works at a university.
Of course he does.
Yeah. He's an avid socialist. Go on his social media page. He's got the raised fist of socialism.
Resist. Hashtag resist.
And he took it upon himself to go down into Central America and organize this caravan, along with others from his university.
Haven't the socialists done enough to Central America?
So Alex Mensing's organization is Pueblos Sin Fronteras, which is an organization dedicated to the eradication of all borders from Latin America up to the United States.
That was your middle school Spanish in action, huh?
Oh, I took it for 10 years, actually.
Oh, yeah? Learn how to roll those R's?
Oh, I've always been able to roll my R's.
Roll my R's.
I sound like a pirate.
I thought you sounded more like a sexy Spanish teacher, or what's it called, salsa teacher.
Esteban
Rodriguez. Rodriguez got the flary shirt that's buttoned open. Yeah.
Flamenco.
That's tango. But anyway, so this socialist commie motherfucker has gone into Central America and decided that everyone from Central America should share a piece of the North American pie.
Well, he went in and convinced them that their lives are shitty and that they need to leave. They didn't want to do that before.
Yeah, it's like, hey guys, you want to leave paradise and go to Detroit?
You want to It's like, hey, what about instead of beaches and poverty, you could have snow and poverty?
Large expanses of corn. Corn and soy fields as far as the eye can see. And you get to pick that corn for 76 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
Who's really getting paid 76 cents on the dollar? It's the Mexicans. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that,
yeah. So the caravan, once again, I don't know if I've said this to you specifically before, but I know I've said this before. I think it's really funny that the argument that people on the left want to make about like the Mexicans staying in the United States and how it's somehow better for them. And you're like, yeah, I mean, maybe it's better than Mexico, but like, are you gonna pay them minimum wage?
Yeah.
Like, if we legalize them, that means we have to pay them more. So you're okay with them being here as long as they're getting paid slave wages.
Yeah, well, this is the libertarians who want open borders. This is their argument.
Libertarians?
Yeah, there's some libertarians who want open borders. Like the Koch brothers, for this exact reason.
Oh, well, the Koch brothers are evil. It's true.
Yeah, I'm not going to debate the
They're
point.
the George Soros of the right. Someone on the fucking social media I don't know why I even talked to these people, but on our page they were talking about how something about like I disagreed with something on the right, and I'm like, yeah, we're allowed to do that. It's called critical thinking.
Yeah.
And he said something about like the left, and I was like, well, do you agree with everything on the left? And he's like, oh, well, it's not, it was in quotes, so it wasn't what I was trying. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Fuck off. We don't have to, that's the thing, man. We don't have to agree with everything. That's the whole point of this new right thing.
Yeah.
So we don't have to agree with all the old, what are they called? The like Christian conservative types and what are
there's
the
a lot of
older conservatives?
Paleocons.
Paleocons? Is that the...
Well, this is the thing, is the right is a large umbrella. There's a lot of different factions of people coming from different ideas, different things that they value the most. You know, if some of these like conservative Christians, they put God above everything. You know, if you people like the Koch brothers who put profit above everything, and then like free markets and stuff. And a lot of libertarians think that way as well. I think this leads into our next topic pretty nicely, actually. The point of the new right is we're trying to take these various branches of conservative thought, and we want to put them all together to oppose socialism, essentially. These, people who want to, what is it called? End all private property and socialize all of the industries. This is
So Marxist. So you're saying essentially that the new right is a movement that in part is there to defend against the uprising of the left and their socialization of everything that's essentially supposed to eventually lead to communism and Marxism and all of that, except they try to kind of mumble it through gritted teeth, just like,
Well, the Democrats in this country have been pretending for the last 30 years that their end goal isn't communism, and I think in current year they've kind of dropped the facade, right? They're openly saying we're coming for your guns and the Second Amendment. Read the Democratic Party platform. It's just straight redistribution of wealth, trying to make everybody equal. It's pretty clear that this is the direction that the left is going, and if we want to fight this, we need everybody to put aside whether or not you like free markets better, or whether you like Christianity better, or if you like white people better. Just drop all of this. And let's not let these people have any power.
Are you trying to align us with the Nazis right now?
I'm just saying that I don't like socialism. I'm not trying to align us with the Nazis.
If you like God and you hate black people,
that is not what I'm saying. Yeah, sorry.
So I was gonna say there's some of the things they're not being 100% open about. They just have dumb slip-ups. Like allowing teenagers, like we spoke about in the last episode, allowing teenagers in front of the microphone where they say, we don't want an inch, we want the mile.
Yep.
That technically it wasn't like a real political pundit, and it wasn't like a real politician that said that. It was just a teenager who let the party platform slip.
Yes.
And I feel like that's kind of been the general not consensus, but it's been like the general thing recently, is that you're seeing a lot of leftists by themselves who are openly admitting the things that a lot of people on the right have been nervous about and questioning about the left's intentions. It seems like now the left is starting to be very cavalier about it. And while the politicians, I think, are still playing the politics,
sure,
I think on a ground level, you're seeing people that aren't just social justice warriors, that aren't just crazy progressives with like pink armpit hair and like a blue mohawk and 700 pounds overweight, yelling about how they shouldn't be fat shamed and how everyone should have health care, so when their leg is removed due to diabetes, they can have it taken care of for free.
For free,
for free.
unquote.
You're starting to see like your everyday Democrats unbeknowingly saying things that they're supposed to be hush hush, but they become so normalized in their circles. They just say them.
Yeah.
They just say them, like the whole the BIS campaign girl who was talking about. I don't know if I mentioned this before in the last episode. Whatever. Like the BIS campaign girl that was talking about how. When we were talking about demography, and how the Republicans and how conservatives in general have more children, and how Illinois is at least Chicago is very far left.
Yes.
And those people traditionally have a lot less children.
Yeah.
And how, what happens when in a generation from now, you guys have been out-fucked. There's just not enough of you. Like, what happens when your numbers start dwindling? And her answer was, well, that's why we have immigrants. We can just bring immigrants in.
Yeah.
Like, she just said it like it was nothing.
Yeah.
Just, like, rolled out of her mouth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that Wait, what? Oh, you think that immigrants should replace the place of normal Americans?
Yeah, they're quite
Yeah.
they're
Well,
quite literally impeaching the population and voting in a new one.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
essentially what they're doing.
And she just had, and that what that fundamentally says is that there is no idea of what being a patriot is, what a nation is, like what the idea of an American is. It's completely lost on this younger generation.
Yeah.
I mean, millennials and younger. It's just completely fucking lost on them that United States isn't just a name and borders. It's a collection of ideas that brings the nation together.
Yeah, and it's about people. Like, people make up nations, not lines on a map.
Yeah, we're not building a wall because literally there's like 10 feet of land between us and them, and we want to make sure that they know that that's them and we know that this is us. Like, the wall isn't just a barrier between the two countries, but it's also a barrier between two ideas.
Sure.
And
two cultures.
And two cultures. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think a lot of these leftists don't understand, is they think that, I don't know, maybe they think that we're still harking on the whole, they're going to take our jobs, or anything like that. But it's, and yeah, like, sure, there'll be a tax burden, and that sucks.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
sure,
there are economic reasons to limit immigration.
And
that's
crime.
fine. Yeah, illegal immigrants commit, 3,000 crimes 3,000 murders every year, which is an insane number.
So crime is a reason, economics is a reason, all these, like, different things are reasons that the Republican platform especially uses talking points. But what it really comes down to at the end of the day is we are trying to preserve a nation, even if it's civic nationalism. We're trying to preserve the idea of a nation, a set of ideas, a set of laws, a set of values, essential liberties that this country was founded on and that has been in the works and building upon for decades and decades and hundreds of years until we are where we are right now. And people like that socialist professor who's going to Central America and sending everybody upwards, they're undermining what essentially we are as a nation. And the thing is, so there's a difference between, and this is something that drives me nuts, because a lot of people say, like, all right, well, if you want to change this country, why not leave? Yeah. And I understand to a point that argument. My point with that argument is, how much are you looking to change? I feel like most conservatives are looking to make small changes to make the country better. Yeah. A lot of the people on the left want fundamental change. They want to change the actual foundation of the country. And when you're changing the foundation of the country, you're not changing the country anymore. You're creating a new country. You're creating a new nation. You're creating a new group of people, of ideas. And if you want to fundamentally change what this country is built on, that's where I actually say get the fuck out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is why I say that the people who are on the right, I mean, should come together and oppose this fundamental change of our nation, because mostly what we on the right want to do is undo the changes that were made by the socialists. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, everybody's got their own flavor. Everybody's got their specific issue that they like the most, that they want to undo the most, or whatever. But this is what we all need to understand: is that all of these communist ideas have a pretty long history in this country. This all ties back in with the Frankfurt School, right, which was founded in the 1920s in Germany, came over to the United States in the 1930s.
They were fleeing the Nazis during World War II, so they decided to take fascism, run away from fascism, and use that opportunity to start socialism in the country that they decided to escape fascism from.
They left probably the worst situation in human history and showed up to literally paradise and thought, this is terrible, it needs to be fundamentally changed.
Oh, yeah. So they have, I think they first went to Colombia in New York, and then they eventually went out west.
Yeah, Palo Altos, California.
Yeah, so that's where you land, and you're literally in paradise.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this
I mean,
this could be better if there was less food and abundance and more starvation and people eating dogs.
yeah, that's again. California used to have a thriving middle class in the 40s and 50s, and it's not that way anymore after these people have, you know, pushed their socialist ideas for the past, 3 decades, something
Goddamn
like that.
hippies ruined everything.
Yeah. This is a prominent Frankfurt School theorist, Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse. Interesting, Marcuse was very popular over in France, despite the fact he was working primarily in the United States. But there was always the people with the shirts, so like Lenin, Che, and Marcuse. The socialist uprising in the 60s, where the students were trying to take back their rights as students or something, as if they had fewer rights because they were students.
Yeah, I just recently learned more about Che and why he's a cunt. And I feel like every time I've realized, like every time I learn more about historical figures that are assholes, the common thread is usually communism.
Yeah, they just turn into communists.
Sometimes it's fascism. Usually it's communism.
Yeah. And even to this day, I mean, 97% of terrorist attacks are committed by Muslims. The other 3% are all commies.
Oh.
Yeah, communism is a huge reason for terrorism. It has been for as long as it's been in existence.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of people blowing themselves up in the name of Jesus Christ.
No, or capitalism.
Oh, yeah, this is for capitalism.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen. But these theorists came up with this concept of critical theory, which the objectives of it is literally to destroy values.
Well, literally to criticize everything. So that's why it's called critical theory, is because it's
to criticize every single thing that anybody stands for until there's nothing left to stand for.
Essentially be like a 2-year-old and just ask why constantly, and just not be happy with whatever answer you
Yeah, and never be satisfied with anything. Because there's, reductio ad absurdum, right? You can always find fault with something if you dissect it enough.
And that's the thing, is that, like, what people don't often realize is that it's built into the doctrine. So when you see situations where people capitulate to the left and give them what they want, and then it's never enough.
No.
So if it's something like, all right, well, there should be more women, and there's more women, and then there should be more women of color, and then there's women of color, and then there needs to be more trans women of color, and then there's more trans women of color, and then there needs to be more disabled trans women of color. And the reason why it's never enough is literally by design. And this isn't to say that every progressive is knowingly using these Saul Alinsky tactics of just constantly pushing and pushing and pushing. But they have learned to parrot it.
Yes.
And that's just as bad. Actually, it's probably worse, because then they're doing it absent-mindedly, and they're doing it thinking that they're doing it in a just way. And I guess that's kind of the intention, is that you want the masses, you want the population to be parroting without thinking. And that's why diversity of thought is not allowed on the left. That's why you get excommunicated from the church of progressivism if you ask too many questions. That's also by design.
Yep.
The whole point is to keep people silent and to keep people in line and to keep people pushing other people's buttons and getting them to react. And then when they react, playing the victim and being what is considered a crybaby. All of these things are in essentially a playbook by Saul Alinsky. But even before that, I mean, he got it. Basically, he took what the Frankfurt School was doing and he made it sexy.
Yeah.
Where before it was a bunch of stuffy old Germans that people didn't necessarily want to listen to back in the 30s. During the sexual revolution of the 60s, once again, a byproduct of the Frankfurt School, the idea of the sexual revolution, the idea of overthrowing the values of the modern American family, the idea of even the idea of the death of God, even the idea of removing religion. These are all things
because they're values. They're standing up for something, and we can't have that.
Yeah. So the point is these things are all by design, and people. It's so interesting because even people on the right, you hear a lot of conservative speakers and conservative talking heads. What's the name?
Just talking
Figures.
heads. Yeah.
You know, like figures on social media. We were just talking about
Content creators.
Content creators. Thank you. That was what I was looking for. You see a lot of content creators that make fun of and kind of question these ideas of why they do this and point out their hypocrisy and kind of like crack jokes like, why are they doing it? And it's funny because even content creators on the right often don't understand the history of this. They don't look into the history.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that because I know before I started reading the history, I noticed all of these plays in their playbook, and I didn't know where they came from. And I feel like a lot of the conservatives that we meet in our conservative group that are new to the group, they kind of have these ideas too, that they know exactly what the left is doing, but they don't understand the why behind it. They just think that these people are insufferable assholes, which they are. Yeah. But there is a reason that they're insufferable assholes. And I feel like a lot of the questioning that people are doing, if they read a book, but if they learn more about Frankfurt School, Saul Alinsky, all these different ideas, then I feel like we could move the conversation forward and we can come up with more productive ideas than just making fun of people for fat phobia videos and wanting to look fat at the beach. Yeah. We can actually take a critical look, not critical theory, but we can actually use our critical thinking skills and take a look at what they're doing and dissect what they're doing and name what they're doing and start calling them out for their bullshit specifically, even if they don't know it. And then if they don't know it, they look like fools. And then they have to read a fucking book and figure out why it is that they're saying the things that they're saying, because they're not original ideas. They don't even think they're original ideas. But redefining terms, redefining racism, making it power and privilege and all that bullshit, that's just another way that the Frankfurt School has come up with this idea of changing the narrative, changing the conversation, moving the goalposts. These are all very basic ideas that allow for social movement and mind control and taking over the culture and being politically correct, so you're always in a victim situation. You're redefining the terms of the argument to make yourself the loser so you can be the winner in the end, because everyone feels bad for the guy beaten up on, and everybody wants the underdog. Yeah, you know, and it's you know, our new currency is victim points. Yeah, they're playing dead. I do want to say the Frankfurt School, it has a very important point. It's a turning point in the history of communist thought, because for the longest time. Well, for not the longest time, but for 50 years, right, with Karl Marx through up until the Frankfurt School, the idea was the dialectic, right? He framed everything in dialectical terms. He said there's essentially two opposing and mutually compatible forms of society, where you have the economic base, the monetary structure, and then you have the cultural superstructure. And they both, one influences the other. And Marx thought that as soon as the economic base was large enough to afford everybody a good life, the cultural superstructure would take over, and all the wealth would just get distributed equally because we're naturally inclined to share. That's the idea where capitalism is supposed to eventually lead to socialism. Yeah, well, this is. In the Soviet Union, there was a guy named Lysenko. You can still look up Lysenkoism, and you definitely should, where he was trying to apply this idea to agriculture, and he thought that the plants would just naturally share, given enough resources generally. Spoiler, that doesn't work, and it led to a lot of famines. But he was given a whole lot of awards in the USSR for his groundbreaking research into agriculture. He literally broke the ground so they couldn't grow crops anymore. Yeah, exactly. He destroyed so much fertile farmland. Well, that goes back to the idea that they think people are essentially good. Yeah. And so that guy probably took that idea of people being essentially good and thought that nature is essentially good. And nature is not essentially good. It's fucking chaotic. Good is a subjective word that we throw onto things. I mean, it maintains balance, but that doesn't make it good.
No. Is a lion good for eating a gazelle? Is a gazelle good for running away from the lion? I mean, what does this really mean when you start applying it to natural phenomenon, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's a whole conversation.
But,
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
Yeah, but I think that the important thing that these Horkheimer and Adorno and Marcuse, when they got to California, they realized that there is plenty of wealth, right? There's plenty of wealth here. Why is it not all distributed equally? Like, why? What is the reason for this? Clearly, Marx couldn't be wrong because he's God now.
Because they earned it, motherfuckers!
Yeah. So what they thought, their explanation for this was that the superstructure in America was actually keeping the proletariat oppressed by the bourgeoisie, right? The cultural superstructure taught people from a very early age that that you had to work hard, that you needed to take personal responsibility, and you needed to, be discerning with your sexual partners in some way. You needed to have morals. You needed to have values. And this individualism and responsibility was actually keeping the proletariat down, so to speak, by saying that they enjoyed what they had because they had worked for it. In the Frankfurt School and then these critical theorists' minds, they hadn't actually worked for it. This is just what they were going to be given based on the economic base. But they were brainwashed into thinking that they had actually earned it. And, of course, we know in reality they did earn it.
Yeah.
So the idea was to infiltrate the areas of American culture, like the universities, like Hollywood, like the media, and push communist ideas into these areas so that the proletariat would eventually finally wake up and overthrow the bourgeoisie. And they knew that they needed to sell a particular narrative. They needed to assault the institutions that were currently upholding the given paradigm. And the way they did this was critical theory. Just constantly criticize every single institution, every single value, every single cultural norm until there was nothing left. And again, so the theory goes, after we don't have any more values, well, I'll just start sharing the wealth.
Yeah, they began their long march through the institutions of the United States.
Yes.
Which we are still seeing. I'd like to say that we're seeing the echoes of it, but we're still technically seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, it's still growing.
We're seeing, I'd say, instead of seeing the echoes or anything like that, I think we're seeing honesty. We're starting to see transparency in this idea. Like, we're seeing on the college campuses that teachers actually do dig socialism, and they're not being quiet about it anymore.
No.
And especially with, like, the internet changed everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, for good and bad, it changed everything. But part of how it changed everything is what was originally in like a tin can at the college universities, where you had socialist professors, but unless you were reading some kind of alt magazines that they were writing articles for, the mom and dad who was paying for college didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Now with the internet, you can actually, not only do these professors have more of a reach, but the students have more of a reach, and they're able to express the ideas of the professors and show videos of the professors acting like fools. And even the professors put their lectures and their ideas they tweet and they comment and they do all this internet stuff.
They create podcasts.
Yeah. But what I think only works if it's subservient. Subservient?
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Subversive?
Subversive. That's it, not subservient. Yeah. It works if it's subversive, but I feel like when you start throwing it in the face of the average American that this is what we're doing, just like with the Democratic Party and trying to take guns, to ban guns completely, and they're tiptoeing around saying they want a bump stock ban, but then they have some stupid fucking teenager who's yelling, we want to take all guns. Well, this is what you're essentially having now with the progressive students and even the college professors, is them stupidly yelling, we want to overthrow the bourgeoisie, essentially, in so many words. and not understanding why they're yelling it, but yelling it loud enough that people are eventually going to ask for context. And this is what I'm saying, that people need to give the context. People that know it need to express it, and people who don't know it, who are questioning it, need to do the research.
The other important point here is that we're now in the third generation of schools, right? The communists came in the 30s, 40s, 50s. A lot of them were refugees from the damage that they themselves had caused in Russia, and they began their long march through the institutions, and they've been essentially this echo chamber has been essentially insulated for 3 generations now. Again, it was the grandparents and then the parents of them, and now it's these new batch who are in their late 20s, early 30s, who are now the third generation of communists, essentially, who run the universities. So they've become a little bit more emboldened because they've never had any of these ideas challenged before. This is what education is.
Well, they're saying that Generation Z is supposed to be more conservative, but we're not seeing that very much on TV.
Well, the ones who aren't eating Tide Pods are.
Yeah, and that's,
Or snorting condoms. Did you hear about this?
No, yeah, actually, I think I have.
Oh, God.
I don't know. In fairness, what we see on TV is what the media wants us to see. So
Sure.
even though we're seeing a bunch of kids yelling about gun control, there are also the kids that Ben Shapiro and other people have been discussing that are pro-gun, that are getting no voice, and how they're even starting to silence the farther left, because now there's a lot of black students who don't want armed security guards in the school because they're afraid that the security guards are going to shoot black students. And that's also not helpful for the left's narrative.
No.
So the intersectionality goes out the window as soon as it's no longer needed for the narrative, which is fun.
Yeah, well, because it's all about what works, right? This is part of Alinsky's playbook, right? This is why Che Guevara was vehemently anti-gay. It's because the population was vehemently anti-gay, and he didn't really care about this issue. He just wanted communism. So he piggybacked on the homophobia in order to, install his, communist regime. Now people are more tolerant of gays, so they're going with the gay thing. But they don't care about gay people. They don't care about black people. They don't care about any of these people. They just want communism. So they'll piggyback on something as long as it's popular to get their agenda through.
Yeah, and they don't care about the poor. That's
No, they've never cared about the poor.
So this is a very giant discussion. It's a very large discussion that's going to take a little while. So we're going to need to cut at a certain point. So we're going to start cutting now, and we're going to end the episode. But we are going to eventually continue this discussion. I'm sure it's going to seep into a bunch of our other discussions as things come up in the news. And it's obviously something that's not going away anytime soon. But it is good for you guys to have a little bit of context. And I would heavily encourage you to read up more on the Frankfurt School, on cultural Marxism, on critical theory.
Look up Lysenkoism, too, because I think it very much illustrates why these ideas don't work.
Also look up Saul Alinsky. Basically, the more information you have, the more you can use it as a tool to fight back when
Just defend yourself.
someone calls you a racist, xenophobic, bigoted, transphobic, genderqueer phobic.
I know the list is endless.
Other kin phobic, tiger kin phobic, possum kin phobic. Shitlord.
Yeah, shitlord.
Shitlord. Well, once again, check out...
I also did want to just say, go ahead and join your local GOP organizations. We just had a meeting with the Chicago Young Republicans this past... yesterday, actually, it was. They're a great group of guys and gals. And, if you're looking for a haven from any of this critical theory nonsense, those people will usually be, still sane.
Or your Libertarian Party.
Or your local Libertarian Party. There aren't as many of those, but definitely get out there if you have one.
And your local library.
And just your local library. Please pick up a card and read a book.
Read a book, you fucking commies. Okay. That's what it was supposed to say. I put damn to censor it, and yet it still got censored. I put damn so we wouldn't get in trouble. I was going to put fucking commie. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I was going to put read a book,
So
you fucking commie.
it was already self-censored?
I already censored it, yeah. believe it or not. So we are going to go ahead and sign off. Just remember that we are on iTunes. We are Google Play Music. I'll let you guys know as soon as the Spotify things goes on. Tell your friends, tell your folks, tell your family, tell your everyone in your social circle, tell the communists up the street, tell Antifa, so they can get on our page and start spreading hate, and then that'll cause controversy, and then we'll grow at an exponential rate, hopefully. So share our shit, like our Facebook, do all that jazz. It was good having you guys for another episode, and we will see you again next week for episode 3. So I am signing off.
Yeah, it was fun, guys. See you next week.
See you next week.
The New Right Podcast.